lot of it is also just based off how annoying people are when they're in my games. Um, like annoying
Wait,
to
say
play
more, say
against,
more,
as
say
in
more.
like annoying in terms of to like play against, not as in like you're there yapping or something like that.
Oh, okay. I thought you're like, man, these guys are
Yeah,
like
I'm
my
not.
least favorite streamers, and I'm like, you know what? Outside
Yeah,
of
no, I'm not
Wasian,
trying to start
I'm like,
anything.
I can see it out of the top 5. Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Don't Talk If You Don't Know, the unofficial official podcast dedicated for all things high-level teamfight tactics in North America. And today's another episode where we review and look back about one of the most fun events of the set. In fact, the only major event of the set so far in Horizon Unbound. It was the Noxus Cup. Joined with me this week is a special guest host. It's not Bryce, who is still kind of weaving through paternity leave. See if he can squeeze in any time for TFT. We got the show host himself, Nick Gangly Pasquale. Nick, welcome to the show for the first time.
Yep, thank you. Very, very happy to be here. Longtime fan of the show, so appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Yes, and actually, it's not technically his first time. He's been on in other capacities, like when we did like the Summit review, for example. And for people who don't know, Gangly is multi-talented. He was hosting the desk, the virtual desk, for the competition over the weekend, but also a filmographer, a producer. He also ran the Tacticians Crown event, which we'll talk a little bit about on this episode. He also designed the graphics of the show, the look and the feel. So if you're like, oh, you know, like it's cool that you guys had your own vibe and colors and stuff, that was Gangly's artistic vision. So thank you, man, for putting this all up for us.
Of course.
All right, so we have two guests today. On the review episode, we like to introduce newer faces to the scene, assuming it wasn't just outright won by like Kerm and Robin, for example. We did have them on a reviewed episode. This week, we got Filup as our first guest, fresh off of a strong finish in the Noxus Cup. Filup, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Hey, Ferdinand, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing well.
All right, great, man of many words. This is gonna be great. Xnieamo, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. A person that actually I don't feel like people didn't really know, but you've been competing for quite some time. I remember seeing you a few sets ago, right? Compete in things like mid-set finale and set 6. So welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself for anybody who's never met you before?
Oh, okay. Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm Xnieamo. I've been playing TFT since like set, I think it was 3.5. I started playing competitive in like set 5, I think, and so that's been kind of on and off. So I don't play like every tournament because sometimes I just quit the set halfway through. But yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I kind of want this to be a little bit about both of your journeys as well. I kind of went to Xnieamo and be like, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself too. Filup, you've kind of been a name that's been around a lot. I think people primarily see you in chat or in some, you know, participating in these cups, or maybe even you know, beating some of their favorite streamers from time to time on solo queue, whatnot. So why don't you just introduce yourself as well to anybody who's never seen you before?
All right, yeah, thank you. I'm Philip. I mean, I've been playing TFT since set 1. I think my first competitive experience was some of the liquid qualifiers in like set 4. But I've only really seriously been playing competitively the last like 2-3 sets. I was kind of a day resident of day 1, set 7 and 8. Made it day 4 the last tournament of set 8, and then this set I've been doing I think like my best so far. Placed 9th in Freljord and, you know, just went 3rd in Noxus Cup. So, you know, happy I'm improving and hopefully can keep it up.
Okay, what's really inspired you to transform, you know, level up from being just like casual Twitch chatter, if you will, to now qualified for regionals?
Oh, I mean, I don't really say anything inspired me. I mean, I was always down to be better. I think I just wasn't playing super well. I think part of it is I've met like a lot of people through the TFT community that have definitely helped me. And I think part of it is just, you know, I've been playing for a while and improving. And yeah, I think the meta this last cup was really good for me as well. I think I had a good meta read, so got lucky with that.
Okay, and we'll dive a little bit more into that as well. Xnieamo, I think a lot of people like don't really know even how serious you are about TFT. You say that like, you know, you kind of quit halfway through. Are you full-time working? Are you a student? What do you do outside of TFT?
Oh, I'm a graduate student, so TFT is kind of just like my hobby. Obviously I put a lot of effort into it when I'm competing. I think more so for me, it's like sometimes I just get really tilted at the game and I'm just like, I'm gonna walk away.
Okay.
And,
Tell me a
yeah.
time when that actually happened. When you were like, what set was it? Like, what happened when you just like
Oh,
got so tilted
yeah,
you
I
had to
mean,
quit?
yeah, like I think the most recent time was actually set 9 because I think it was like, okay, so what happens with me is that sometimes like you kind of like you're grinding ranked and then you go on those you like go on like a minus 300 LP streak, and you don't know what you're doing wrong because everything just feels like it doesn't go your way. I think that happened like in the middle of set 9, so I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna take a breather.
Okay,
Uh,
okay. But did you ultimately enjoy set 9? Because I feel like most people really love set 9. I think 9.5 is not necessarily vibing with a lot of people, but I think a lot of people like set 9 at least.
uh, yeah, I mean, I liked set 9. It's just for me, it's more like me being frustrated, like not necessarily at the game, but like at how I'm playing the game and not really understanding. Like it's like when you're on tilt and you just are obviously making mistakes, but you're like you can't process what those mistakes are because you're on tilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually that's like the most frustrating things for me. And I think so usually like taking like just not playing the game for like a month or two like kind of resets. And with the way like TFT sets come out, because like each set or half set is like a new or kind of new thing, it acts as sort of like a natural refresher for me to like get back into it because it's like everyone restarts. So
Xnieamo, I remember in set 6. So set 6 was kind of the first time I started tracking stats, right? And I remember I was doing some prep for Boop and Crowan for one of the tournaments they were casting, and I want to say it might have been Dawn Cup. And you were one of the players I had pointed out because at that point in time, if I remember correctly, you made like top 8 or like really close to top 8 in one of the set 5 tournaments. I think it was Dawnbringer Cup. You did really well in that one, and then you made third day at mid-set finale in set 5, and then you made final day at Piltover Cup at the beginning of set 6. And so you actually kind of had this very, very consistent trend that continued all the way through set 6, right? Ultimately, you made mid-set finale. I don't think you made regionals, but after set 6, it did feel a little bit like we haven't seen you. I don't know if it's like as dedicated, but you haven't really posted those same results. How much of that do you think is like an actual dip in performance versus not taking the game as seriously? Because it does feel kind of like disconnected versus how successful you were in set 5 and 6.
right, I think so like set 5 was like the first time I was like really tryharding for competitive, and I think like what frustrated me was just not like consistently getting to final lobby and things like that. And so I think I probably was a little like demoralized like after like 2 sets of that. But the other thing is that I think Lost Ark also released sometime in between there. So I definitely didn't
Oh.
play half a set because of that game. Um
Oh.
Every
yeah,
player I
There it
ever
is.
highlight is doomed by Lost Ark.
yeah.
It's my curse.
Okay. Here's a question: who's better at Lost Ark, you or Soulless?
Oh, probably Soulless, because I don't play that game anymore either.
Oh,
So
okay, but at your peak.
I don't know. I've never seen Soulless play.
Oh, interesting. Okay, who's better at
Yeah.
TFT, you or Soulless?
Oh, I don't know, because like okay, so like whenever Solus is streaming TFT, I can't tell if he's trolling or not because a lot of times, no, like I think what last patch he was like Rogue 2020. I was like, that's like a little too far, no?
Yeah, rogues are like Taco Bell Wi-Fi. Like it's because he is a
Yeah,
brand. He has a reputation to uphold. He plays one
right,
cost assassin reroll. That's just like his thing. Soulless can do whatever he wants, but I feel like
right,
sometimes he just chooses the path of like most destruction. Like he just whatever he does is like as if it's upsetting people, is getting people to react. He's like living rent free in people's mind. He signs up for. Also, according to Dish Soap and all of them, he's apparently their monkey, right? Like what that means is when he like basically limit tests things for them. Like, hey, I had this really ridiculous idea. Maybe you try out, I don't know, reroll Orion or something like that. Solas go jam games, and he'll actually go do and sacrifice his LP while everyone else just sits. So Very, very funny. But I don't know what led him to play so many rogues. I was confused too. Did you run into him a lot on ladder? Is that what happened?
Maybe. The thing is, like, I feel like for having a rogue player in your lobby isn't really that annoying just because there's like a fixed positioning against rogues. And so like for the most part, it's annoying on stage like 3 really.
When they start first getting online, yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise you're pretty happy to have a rogue player in your lobby, I think. Because like I think like 4 out of 5 games you'll outplace them. And then the 5th game they high roll and hit 3-star everything and win the game, which is fine. But as long as you're like paying attention, it's actually kind of good to have a rogue player.
Okay, got it. Well, that's interesting. You're not a rogue player. How would you actually define your approach and style to TFT?
So like preference wise, I definitely prefer like sort of the fast 8 type comps. I used to be a little too stuck in that mindset, so like I'm much better about just rerolling like fast patch because you have to. Basically, like there's been reroll patches in the past. Like I don't know, like what was like set 5 with the Cavaliers, like
Misfortune Cavs. Oh yeah.
You know, I would just like refuse to play it because I was like, I don't want to press D, or yeah. But I think after like I don't know, just like I think my sort of mental view on TFT has matured a bit, so I'm just like cool with everything now. But I definitely prefer playing sort of the fast 8 or fast carry comps.
And Philip, so you said that you had a good meta read. Are you like more? Do you think you flourish more in like this environment where reroll is like good, or is that just? Are like how would you actually categorize your strength as a player?
I mean, I think I'm pretty adaptable. What I meant by the meta read comment was sort of just I feel like my TF read last patch was pretty good. I know like Xnieamo had the same one, and I think Milk was running it too. And like I don't know, I guess that's something we can talk about more later. But I guess for me as a player, I'm pretty flexible in between patches, like with regard to my play style. I mean, reroll's like a little bit easier to play, but I kind of just like playing uncontested comps.
So off meta, you like to play off meta?
No, I like to play meta, but I like just taking like the meta like the meta comp that's hopefully uncontested in the lobby, sort of like sacking out a little bit and then winning out because like it's a little bit overtuned.
Okay, so it's not off meta at all. You like playing the OP stuff.
No, yeah, I'm not smart enough to play off meta.
Okay, well at least you're honest. Okay, so let's go ahead and like just catch up on some of the news and recap. That's just a little introduction to get to know Filup and Xnieamo. The big thing on everybody's mind, 1320 is live. Now, the thing about 1320 is that we have once more a release patch where there's one composition that sits head and shoulders above everybody else. That's multicasters currently. You may have actually seen Milk today climb almost to rank 1 purely off of one-tricking it. He played 11 or 12 games or so. Almost took rank 1, was one final game off. But he basically averaged like a 3.0 or something like that, climbing with multicasters. It's pretty crazy. With changes to Sona and buffs across the board to like a bunch of other adjacent units, multicasters are pretty insane. Now, that being said, the data says that. I saw one streamer do it. I watched a little bit of Setsuka before the show started. It seemed like he's trying not to play that. Are people overreacting? Is it actually really just multicaster spam, or do you think the knee-jerk reaction is justified? Let's start off with Filup.
I mean, I think Milk is definitely really good at multis. I mean, he was playing it a lot last patch too. I saw him angle TF from some crazy spots. I think like a B patch is definitely needed. Like I don't think it's too much of a knee-jerk reaction. I think it's definitely strong. I mean, you brought up Setsuko. Obviously, like Setsuko can play whatever incline. That guy's a beast. Yeah.
Okay, and Xnieamo, do you agree? Do you think the B patch is necessary, or were you like, nah, actually, I want to wait to see more before? Because this is the regionals patch. This is the reason why it's important, is because you have to remember this is the patch that's going to be played on regionals as well.
Oh, yeah, no, there definitely needs to be a B patch. I've played a few games of multicasters before this podcast, and like I was streaking with like a 1-star board and a Vel'Koz 2 on like stage 4 and 5, and it's just like, hello.
Okay. So multicasters are good, but let's say the B patch comes and it only nerfs multicasters. Are we worried about anything else? People are speculating about Neela, for example. Is Neela too good with the RFC, Giant Slayer stacking, and everything like that? Or is there other sleeper things that just aren't getting attention because multicasters see in the spotlight?
I think that Nyla comp is definitely something I played a lot last week. Didn't really get nerfed. I know Xnieamo played it a lot as well. I expect them to hit it on the B patch. I'd be surprised if they didn't. If they don't, I think it's definitely going to be like dominant with a Soda and multicasters nerfed. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's one of the matchups, right? One of the comps right now that has a decent matchup into multicasters, but that's really only because multicasters is going to be like 4-way contested. But yeah, I mean, I think so. I didn't actually know about that comp until like the day of Noxus. I had to like learn it the day after day 3. But it's like my read on that was like it was probably like sleeper OP last patch because it only came out like towards the end of it and it didn't get changed at all. So it's probably if multicasters get nerfed, it's probably the strongest comp on the patch without changes.
I mean, here's the thing, man. It's the comp. Okay, because I was actually in your boat as well. Because like it was like a day or two. I actually found it out about 2 days before the final weekend when I was playing in Noxus Cup as well. And it's just the reason why I think it just went under the radar and still might be was because last patch it was so hard to hit. It was so hard to hit because too many people were angling like Xayah. And even some people who occasionally play like vertical Bilgewater or whatnot, or Cho'Gath bruisers taking Sejuani's, it just felt like you couldn't actually hit consistently. But if it's less contested because people don't want to play Xayah, then that might actually come to the forefront. So I think it actually could end up being very, very strong. I agree. Either way, we don't know what the B patch is. Riot's been working on it all day. No need to breathe down their necks. I think they know the meta is not great. More put out a tweet actually, Gangly. Did you see that? You're saying
I was actually about to ask. No, I didn't know. Did they officially acknowledge that there's a hotfix coming?
Yes.
Or B patch?
I mean, it's not a hotfix. Hotfix implies that it'll come in like it's just different technological terms. I can actually look it up real quick because I remember Moore tweeted like an hour ago or a couple hours. He said, "Quick note: the team right now isn't really reading much." Oh yeah, like they're GFT players after all. We're hard at work on the B patch and set 10, so heads are super focused for those defending the team. Appreciate the trust a lot. We really do. To those angry, I get it. But also maybe chill a bit. Okay, back to work. Which is, I think, a pretty good summary of it. I mean, I do think that people are very angry, but it feels like people's attitude it's like a buildup, right? It's not an isolated incident. It's that I think consistently we've had some pretty big misses on balance, I think, all throughout this set. I think most players, Gangly, are pretty upset because it's just happening over and over and over, and it feels like things aren't getting better.
I mean, I feel like, without trying to draw like too much negativity to the balance team, it feels like since set 7, this has been a very consistent trend. Obviously, it's not every patch, but I feel, and maybe this is revisionist history, but in my mind, like I don't remember us needing as many B patches and hotfixes in like sets 4, 5, and 6. Because I feel like the ones that did, it was almost like such a huge deal, right? You think War Week, and you think War Week again, right. And then you have like the
or Bilgewater
stuff. but like set 7, 8, 9, it feels like it's more often than not that a patch releases that has some glaring issue that needs to be either hotfixed or B patched. Which, it's a complicated game. Like we all get that, right? It's an impossible game to balance. Really hard to see these things up front. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I think it's completely valid to be frustrated by it, especially if you're, for instance, an LCQ player, right? Like this is your chance to get your last minute practice in. We don't know if the B patch is coming in this week or next week. Do LCQ players need to be grinding right now? Like how much does the meta shift tomorrow if the B patch comes?
Man.
So, it's valid.
That's the big thing that gets me is that tonight is the DSG Trials qualifier. After this podcast ends, I'm going to do a watch party to track it. But man, I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be an enjoyable experience for a lot of people who are grinding for the disguised Trials, which for people who don't know is a qualifier for an opportunity to be signed as a pro player under their org, which is really cool. For people who don't know, it's from Disguised Toast. They run an esports org, a losing proposition, but they're doing a bunch of cool initiatives under like Valorant and League of Legends, and now they're entering TFT, which is really cool. Are you two playing in it, by the way? Filup and Xnieamo?
I hopefully am. I mean, I'm signed up. I'm in the range right now. I'm sitting. I'm hopefully not playing again today on the patch. I did grind until like 4 a.m. last night so that I didn't have to play today. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna be grinding some multicasters after this podcast.
Oh my
Dan,
god!
Mort just put out a tweet. Did you see this?
Yes,
Mort
yes. I am going to actually change this right here, right now. Wow. People would think, is this pre-recorded? No, sir. We're about to do it live. All right, give me 2 seconds here. Because Mort Dog tweeted this literally a minute ago. Okay. So, sorry about that. Okay, so here is the B patch. Wow, you guys get live reaction. Wow, this is the first time for Don't Talk If You Don't Know, an actual patch notes review live during the show, because this happened less than 60 seconds ago. Azir got buffed. Attack speed from 0.75 to 8.8. Fiora resistances got buffed. Challengers were performing abysmally, by the way. It was the worst comp in the game, 5.3 average at Masters Plus. It was beyond terrible. The win rate of challengers is already really low. It was 6%, 5.3 average placement. It was beyond terrible. I was like, I'm not clicking this unit. Kaisa got buffed as well, so a double buff to challengers. Neela got nerfed. Her cleave damage tuned down from 65 to 55. Stacking attack speed is now nerfed by 10% from 20 to 18. And then TF damage got, whoa, holy moly. It went from 210/315 to 185/275. Big time nerfs at 1 and 2 costs. Then we have multicasters effectiveness now reduced, or increased rather, which means that they deal less damage on their second cast. And then Radiant Redemption got nerfed. So they nerfed Twisted Fate. They're nerfing multicaster trait itself. They're nerfing Galio's Radiant item, reducing it from 300 to 200 health and reducing the damage reduction. And then they tweaked some augments. Demon Flare got nerfed. Thank God, because Demon Flare is way too OP. I don't know if that's actually enough, but we'll see. Petricide Shackles, which is the Demacia trait only. And then the big kahuna. I actually heard whispers and rumors about this. They straight up disable scope weapons. Oh man, let's go to the biggest scope weapons abuser on this call. Filup, how do you feel about scope weapons? Are you shaking for regionals now?
That's me. I'm the biggest. I thought that was Xnieamo. I'm a flexible player.
Oh, Xnieamo, are you shaking now?
What? Oh, I don't know. Wait, how many times have I played? I played it like twice, I think, in Noxus Cup.
I remember this
I call
guy.
that taking advantage of an opportunity.
Every game, we're the same legend playing the same comp. This guy's holding extra Nyla on bench. I think he hit Sejuani 3 on stage 4 versus me. Yeah.
Did he?
I'm pushing the abuser title onto him, not me.
Okay. This is in tournament? Filup, was this in the Noxus Cup?
Yeah, because I mean, I started off, like with a first. I see Setsuga win first. I know I need like another first, and then I see stage 4, Sejuani 3,
Wow. How did that happen? Was that like a shifting stance game, Xnieamo, or what?
No, it was a Infernal Contract bailout.
Ah, the classic.
Nice.
The classic.
Nice.
The deal with the devil. All right.
Okay, I think I might be missing something. Because I haven't actually seen any TFT since the patch drop today, just because I was working. Did something happen with scoped weapons that I missed?
It's more that scope weapons is just a problematic, like if you hit it, the effectiveness of your comp, it's not even just double. It's actually like an entire dimension of power, because you're really stable on 1-star, and as you know, most comps right now, if you play 4 costs, are heavily dependent on hitting the 2-star version of it. So like a 1-star Mord is like obscenely stable with it. Neela can actually do some pretty illegal things as well. If you're playing the Twisted Fate version, you're able to get like the whole board windshield wiping. So I agree that it's a problem. Straight up disabling it, I mean, okay, they have 2 options. 1, they could take a very aggressive nerf to make sure that it's not a problem. 2, they could take a light conservative nerf and then have like the equivalent of the nerf to Cho'Gath or something like that, which really didn't do anything. And it was still really good. Or 3, they can just straight up disable it. And I think they took the most safe approach because this is the patch that's going to be competitive for everybody. This is what qualifies for the World Championships. This is what determines the end of the season for a lot of people. I think they just want it to be a good play experience. I'm okay with it. I think it's like a thumbs up from me, but I'm like, I kind of wish we didn't have to disable scope weapons. It is one of the coolest augments they've ever made. For like a gold.
I feel like the idea of scoped is cool, but like I feel like in the current state, I mean, just with the champs in the game, you end up just taking it to abuse some like broken kind of uninteractive stuff with, you know, solely Mordekaiser and Isla. You never really get to this like power fantasy of like having other champs like flexing in and out. It's just those two. So you know, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. Okay, so Filup, overall, you approve of this patch?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to play this weekend, so like I'm down to see how it starts out. Like I'm down to have everybody else, you know, test that out for me.
He's got 16 soluses to monkey for him. I like it. Xnieamo, thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I like the Azir buff because that unit has not been a unit for the whole set or whole half set, so maybe it'll be a clickable unit now. So
there's a lot of belief that it's just that the Azir can be good. It's just that fights just end too quickly, right? The burst is too high. There's too much AoE from things like the Nila, or there's just like too much high burst from multicasters, or rogues get to your backline type of thing. Like you just never have the time for the Azir to actually like ascend and get the soldier stacking. Maybe this helps just enough. We'll see. And I do want challengers to be better. I just want the 4-cost Gangly to be playable. Like I don't know how it was for you, but like watching so much reroll. It's not that the thing is each lobby in itself had diversity, but each lobby was playing like the same type of thing. There's always like one Cho player. There's always like one rogue player. There's always like an open fort like Nila and Vanquisher player. There's a high roll Vanquisher player, and then there's some like reroll like, you know, Nico or something like that. And that was like every lobby. So yeah.
I don't know if you got to see the lobby that was, because it was on broadcast, so I'm assuming you didn't get to see it, but it was like 6 Vanquisher players.
Wait, really?
Same game. Yeah, no, it actually was such a cool game, though. Well, no, it actually wasn't that cool, but it turned into something interesting because there's 6 Vanquisher players. Asa gets dropped double. He has 3 tomes, I think, off the start, or something, or like maybe he takes Prismatic Tome and then gets dropped the tome. Whatever it is, he ends up with like a Vanquisher emblem and a Challenger emblem, and then I think he hits another Vanquisher emblem, but then he hits Salvage Bin on 4-2 and just plays Challengers with a Fawn, and everyone else just doesn't hit because they're all contesting Vanquishers.
Oh, that's fun.
It was pretty wild. There was something crazy like that. But going off of what you said, what stood out to me from the weekend was that I don't know if it's a lack of transformative emblems or whatever it is, but something about this weekend, watching it all play out, I agree with you completely. It did feel like every lobby complexion kind of returned to the same form. We didn't really see any crazy, like, I don't know, mind-boggling comps that like you just didn't really see coming. Everything felt kind of formulaic, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but like it is nice when you get to see the more transformative stuff that makes like one person in the lobby really stand out, instead of like, I don't know, seeing the same X number of comps, even if it's a healthy number of comps played, you know, every single game. So I don't know. I wish we could see a little bit more diversity game to game.
I agree. I agree.
I feel like the issue with that is that the current state of the game really rewards committing on 2-1 with the narrowness of carry itemization. I mean, like I can speak to my own game plan going, and I had like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 lines I was willing to play, and I just look around on like 2-1, 2-2 with like TF and figure out which one was like relatively uncontested that I had a decent spot for, and would just play that. Like I wasn't really trying to play anything transformative because like I'm not trying to slam like Nashri stage 2 and then just like never hit like an Azir or like hit a Azir 2 and just like bleed out because the comp's not very good, right? I'd rather just play some like optimized line with optimized BIS.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think a lot of there's like 1 or 2 items that could be shared across multiple trees. I mean, you actually described one of them. Nash is actually one of the more flexible AP items, but it's like it kind of stops around there because It's like right now you pretty much would just play Nashers on like Soraka or Azir, and like maybe if challengers were more playable from a tempo position in the past, you could put it on like Kai'Sa. But then like they kind of want different things at the top end, and so it didn't actually feel like if you had to pivot, it was almost like too late if you committed to a certain amount of items. And that's also problematic because of the way legends are structured as well. So. But that being said, we can just go ahead and recap since we talked about the weekend. You mentioned Asa. Asa barely missed out on the day 3 cuts. Tied with Frodan at 27 points, Gangly. I was so upset. But it's all good. It's all good. It was actually a great tournament. And also looking back on it, a lot of people actually got day 3, right? You look at Wage and Iverson, 24 points. Robin at 23 points, although Robin's told me ahead of time, he's like, hey, actually, I'm not taking this cup like super duper seriously in terms of like prepping for it. I'm gonna go and meet up with some friends the night before, so don't draft me for fantasy. He told me that after I picked him. Ramblin', who got 25 points, pretty close. Appy's had one of his weaker performances, I think, in terms of the results. He started off pretty good, and then Kyun almost went dead last as well, and he was telling me that he like completely bombed. It seemed like it was a very competitive field, but also that I feel like a lot of big names exited early, man.
I feel like there's a lot to dig in on what happened in day 3. Like even being on the desk, it's funny. Like in my prep notes that I was, obviously we write up certain stories for certain players, and what I kind of did was wrote like worst case scenario for different players, and I wrote for Kyun like just don't go last. Like for Phoenix and Kyun, it's like just don't go 8th. Literally don't go 8th, and you're fine. And Kyun. I mean, it sucks because Kyun is coming off the back of making this return that is quite frankly, like, at least in my opinion, before this cup, his best competitive set to date. I actually like, which is kind of interesting to say because I think people think of Kyun as like one of the greats of TFT. He's so big. People remember him, the set 3 international event that he won against China and, being the mech player and all that. But Kyun, quite frankly, never had like a super complete season, and it felt like he was actually on track to do that this time. So it really sucked to see him bomb out the way he did. And then I believe ultimately did not qualify to regionals, right? He's in LCQ.
He's playing in LCQ this weekend.
Yeah, so it really sucked to see Q not be able to pull it together. There was one thing I did want to ask you though, Dan, if you don't mind, like kind of digging into your run, because you've obviously you've competed at quite a few of these now. This is your first time making final weekend, and you looked quite dominant weekend 1, and then obviously you obviously were good enough to make day 4. You were tie breaked out, right? So I'd love for you to kind of speak on your performance over the weekend.
So my weekend, I actually walked away pretty satisfied. This was, so for one thing, I just want to say, new high score for a TFT caster. What up, Bryce Blum? You got to day 3, but you got smoked both times. I got to carry us once again over the finish line. I guess it's up to me to get to day 4. But on a more serious note, I could have made it, man. You're right, I could have made it. I clearly can hang, but every game except for the last one, I left placements on the table. There was moments where I was just like, dude, like, okay, I was one of like the only people, I was one of the few people who are willing to play Piltover. I think a lot of people just don't want to play Piltover because there's so many ways you can get griefed early game. They play 2 graves or even just 1 graves, and you're like totally screwed if they open for it. But I'm brave about it because I know that if you start with Piltover, you don't have to commit to Gunners. You can just play it off of if you get grief, just play it for an early econ and then just transition to Vanquishers because you both slam Last Whisper and transition that way. So I had a backup game plan if that ended up happening. But I got a game where like everything lined up and I just couldn't beat the rogue player, and I realized like 2 minutes after the game ended how I could have gotten first. And that happened for another game where I went second as well. I had 2 seconds. I was like, I could have gotten first in both these games. I just didn't know how. And that's why I won. It's really hard to do competitive TFT. People always like, it's so easy to backseat because I think people in chat probably knew how I could win, but I couldn't figure it out in real time. And 2, that's why I'm a caster and analyst, man. I can just give me 2 minutes and I'll figure it out. But if you give me 30 seconds or less, I'm probably not figuring it out. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard, especially in the heat of the moment. But either way, I'm proud of myself because the most important thing was I felt like my meta read was like really good as well because I was one of the people who really believed in TF. And more importantly, some of the people that I converted to Twisted Fate also did really well. Like Milk was going to go Lee Sin for this tournament. And I spent like a day or 2 talking about it with him. And he's like, Lee Sin versus Twisted Fate. And we labbed it out. And you know Milk, he needs overwhelming evidence before he switches to something and commits to it, because he commits hard. And so it felt good to see him believe me and then make like another really big run like he usually does into the final lobby. So it felt reassuring that like, one, like I said, I could hang, but two, it's just like my ideas were great. And even though I didn't make it to the day 4, okay, here's the kicker. Asa got to day 4 anyways, man. Asa got to day 4 anyways. So the fact that like these two 27 players got through and then they end up going into the final lobby, it's like the new Malala, right? Because that's what happened with Malala for the final lobby. He ended up getting through into the top 8 and then ended up having a miracle run. So I'm okay with it, man. I'm okay with it. And Sasuke, by the way, had another like he was kind of saying like, oh, it's like never Twisted Fate. Like who would ever play Twisted Fate? Like it's like so bad, whatever. And then everyone's going through like, oh, if you play Twisted Fate, you're like bad at the game. And I'm like, you're not wrong. I'm pretty sure playing Twisted Fate makes you actively worse at TFT. The more you play it, the more you like forget like some fundamental skills. It's just leaking out of your brain. But
It's
that's
terrible.
okay.
I was doing like a VOD review and I was with like Darth after day 3 and I was like, wait, like why aren't you slamming these components? Like how have you just like rolled the same components like 3 rounds in a row when he wasn't playing Pandora's? I have the brain rot for real now.
TF brain. Oh man, we're gonna go over more of the top 8 of people specifically who finished, but let's quickly talk about comps. We did kind of talk a little bit about legends. Is there anything that was particularly surprising? Actually, maybe we can even talk about it too. Filup and Xnieamo, was there any specific like comps? Like, what was your favorite game that you played this past weekend? Specifically, whether it's like a well-known comp or just like something you executed pretty well.
I can start. I beat Nasus 3 and Azir 3 on different boards on like the Bilgewater Nala board by teching in a Targon Rise. I actually felt like hella smart like on day 3.
Ooh, a Targon Rise tech. I kind of like that.
I just like Astro sweated Targon Rise positioning. And yeah, I mean that was like felt pretty good about that one. I think it gave me some momentum to like because I think I was sort of middle of the pack at that point on day 3, and then like I would like 1, 2, 3 to end the day and got some bonus points off it. So yeah.
Okay. Xnieamo,
Yeah.
did you figure out something?
Yeah, I think my day 1 tilt over opener into Noxus 3 was a good one because that also like bailed me out points wise. Because I think I was probably like not even at the cutoff at that point in time at that game, and then I kind of just got handed it free first. So
Okay,
that was good.
all right. Well, I have the stats pulled up here, and there's some really interesting trends. The first thing I want to point out is that the best performing comp statistically was when you were able to get Mordekaiser online. And when you get Mordekaiser online with Noxus, it was a 3.5 on day 3. The two graphics, by the way, day 3 versus day 4. For whatever reason, the spreadsheet that Ophelia was putting together doesn't have both of them combined, so I spliced them. The second is just look at how wildly varied Nico is, man. You look at day 1, you have double troubles Nico Soraka averaging like almost a 6.0. It was like a 5.9. Pretty terrible. And this lines up with my experience, which is like sometimes if you don't hit with this comp, you are just not even getting 5th. You're probably going like 7th or 8th a lot of times if things are not working out. But if you do hit, look what happened on like the final day. 40% win rate, like really, really high when you do end up landing things. Super feast or famine. But then the normal common variation averaged like almost a 4.8 with really high win rate, low top 4 rates. So a lot of like that kind of stuff was really interesting to me in particular. Also, Demon Flare Swain won half the games that it was played. So if you guys are wondering how B-Pad's like, is Demon Flare really a big problem? It's a pretty big problem. Most people who have played Demon Flare know how strong it is, I think. Gangly, you're the stats nerd. Any other interesting stats that catch your eye when you're scanning things?
The Mord stat. You're saying Mord averaged 3.5
on day 3. On day 3, on the first one.
On day 3.
Yeah. It like did super well for some people, and then the next day it looked like it was struggling.
Yeah, I felt like that Mord storyline was actually very interesting because it was kind of this very natural arc of like day 1 open bracket, nobody's playing Mord. Day 2 open bracket, everybody's playing. Well, more people are playing Mord. Day 3 it does super well, and then it kind of calms down for the 4th day. And it felt like this very, I don't know, almost like just natural progression that brought like harmony and balance to Mordekaiser, right? So I thought that was really interesting to see on broadcast for sure. But it was cool because I know you were pretty vocal about Mord, and you attributed some of your success in the open bracket portion to that. So it was fun to see other people like really spamming that in day 3. And we got to see, we got to see a lot of Noxus, especially because we were following Tetsuko, who ended up playing that line quite a bit. We got to see quite a bit on broadcast, so it felt like a fun way to kind of tie that knot and see it all come to fruition.
Yep, absolutely. I had the legend stats pulled up as well now, with Poro being overwhelmingly the most common and Twisted Fate being the second most common. TF ended up being very, very solid, 4.15, 4.3, basically over the course of the 2 days. The big surprise, I think, was how well Earth was doing, but that was mainly because Goobums was having a lot of success, and Asa was also playing it. He got a chance in day 4 and then ended up going pretty far. Having seen Earth, Filup, Xnieamo, are either of you believers in Earth? Like, if you were to go back, would you have potentially have played Earth at all?
No chance. I mean,
Yeah.
I think TF, I really like the TF play style, and also like, I mean, I think because like you said, the Earth sample is just because like Goobums played it, and I think Goobums is an insane Earth player. I tried to learn the Earth line like I think like set 9 by watching Goobums stream. That was like way too hard. My easy TF lines.
All right, that's a pretty good summary of it. And speaking of, we can actually just go straight into the player testimonies and kind of talk a little bit about what their player experience was. So we can start off with Goobums. So basically, for people who don't know, I go and basically message all the people who made Final Lobby and a couple of other people who made deep runs and had a special performance. This is what Goobums had to say. He said, quote, I thought I was pretty bad going to the tournament, and I think even coming out of the tournament doing well, I don't think I'm very good. Wow. I think my success was in large part due to the understanding of the strongest lines well, like Ionia versus Bruisers, Vanquishers, Nico after day 1. And I want to give a shout out to Pokygom, Ramblin, Asa, Distop, and Kern for helping me work through the Nico line between days 1 and 2. He means day 3 and 4. Because I went 1-4-1 with it on day 2, and I could have done even better. Holistically, it felt like people tried too hard to shy away from the S++ tier comps like Ionia Vanquishers. And while I understand why that's enticing, it's important to recognize how and when to play them. I mean, I think he's really right. If there's one regret that I had, is that I think I had a couple of games I probably could have played it, and there's only like 1 or 2 people that sometimes it's like, oh wow, it was actually so uncontested and I could have just played it, but like I defaulted to not playing it, that I probably should have done that. So I think he's right, Gangly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to. This makes sense. I think from like the Goobums POV when I hear this kind of take. I think it probably does come down to like a stylistic thing. Like I think there are a lot of players in the field that like really just want to play what the game is kind of offering them, in like, you know, a meta sense. But I think there's also some players that like, okay, the later we get into TFT, I think we're going to start losing the cooks. Eventually, we're going to start losing the people who want to play the spicy things. But like, I think they still live right now, right? Like, and we got to see some of their success. Like the Ramkev making day 4, I think is kind of evidence that like there are the free thinkers that are still existing. You know, Pocky, I think, was once upon a time like a really spicy chef, but over time has like found his edge by just like being quicker to the game, and these days is not really even considered the player that's like finding his edge over the field at large anymore. So I think like I think I'm taking a roundabout way of saying like this take makes a lot of sense. There probably are a lot of people who are leaving things on the table because they don't want to be contested, but in a way I think that's like still a good thing, because I think a part of the life that we find in TFT are the people who want to say like, hey, this may not be the most optimal way, but like maybe this maybe I'm stumbling upon something that has a lot of value, and I'm willing to pull the trigger in tournament to find out. Like that's fun and exciting.
That is exciting. That is exciting. One thing I'm personally excited about as well is DPay made regionals, and we got a chance to sit down with DPay. He said, quote, I'm really proud of my mentality to persevere throughout the tournament. For people who don't know, DPay started off with like a 7th and an 8th or something like that. And in the day 3, it was looking pretty ugly. And then he made it all the way to Final Lobby. In day 3, I had to clutch the last 2 games in day 4 where my physical condition was not good. Oh, I didn't know that. I think I really high rolled this tournament and my skill was not completely there, but I'm really happy that at least my mentality pushed me through. Given my high roll spots, I think I could have placed second quite easily. I'm looking forward to regionals to show that I do belong and that I'm one of the top players, top TFT players in North America. Filup, are you in that group with DPay? Like, do you practice with him, or is because I know that you float between like a bunch of different. You talk to a lot of people in TFT, so I'm not sure if you're part of that group.
I haven't talked too much with DPay. I think we scrimmed a little bit before mid set.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean that guy's a beast. I watch his stream.
Okay. If DPay thinks he does, or like if people have the impression that DPay doesn't belong, you guys might have something coming for you. Come regionals time. I think he's very solid. All right, I got a chance to sit down with Saint Vicious, by the way. Saint got top 10, and I felt like that was worthy enough because that was his best result since set three and set 4. That was back the last time Saint had a good run was back then. He said, I thought I did okay, but it didn't seem like people prepared that hard for this tournament, to be honest. And also the seeding had to have been off. I didn't have Sensuke in my lobby until top 16, and Asa had him in literally every single lobby. Yeah, that's I've heard a couple of people talk about the seeding issues. It felt like it was kind of something was like weird. I'm not sure if that's actually the case or that's just random bracket luck, right?
I think it has to be.
Yeah. I got a chance to sit down with Asa. Asa said, I'm pretty disappointed. I feel like 5 out of the 7 games I played or so could have gotten an extra placement or two if I just played a bit better. Wow, this seems to be common across everybody. You hear me say it, you're hearing DPay say it, you're hearing Asa say it. The 2 main regrets I have were 1, hitting extra rolls on Serpentine River on stage 2 while open and just using all of them immediately since I didn't read that you could save them up. Oof. And 2, taking literally an entire stage to make a difficult transition salvage bin in a game where 6 people started Ionia spat. I was 100 HP, 3-6, and ended up going 3rd. I made double fawn on 4-2, but had dead units until I figured out my board on 5-2. I got item bench locked very badly, and if I just remember to put items on a filler bench unit, it's literally a guaranteed first. I didn't really expect to make regionals, but it just sucks knowing that, like, I don't know, but for example, if I only read what Serpentine River did, I would have made it. And that's gutting. Even the way Asa typed this out is, you can just kind of feel the pressure and kind of the disappointment wash over him.
There's this moment I think that every TFT player experiences, and it's moments like these that haunt you, right? It's like, I could have gotten 1 placement here, I could have gotten 1 placement here, right? And then when you just barely missed the cutoff, like Asa did here, it feels like those moments you just never forget. I recently did this video with Pocky where we talked about some of his moments in TFT history, and we talked about the Finn Callista, which was day 1 of regionals in set 5, but in day 2 he lost the tiebreaker to Spencer, and he talked about how he reflected on those games. He's like, I could have saved placements in so many different places, but you just never forget those. Like, you carry those with you, like in your competitive career, because in a way it's like you have to, right? Because if you forget about them, you're likely to do them again. I imagine for both Filup and Xnieamo that you each kind of carry those moments where it's like, I know I could have extended this at least 1 place.
Yeah, Xnieamo, you've competed for several sets, so I mean, this feels like a relatable emotion for you, even, right? I'm sure you've had events like this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think after every tournament, like when you're thinking about the games, you'll always come up with things you could have done better. Especially like when I was in the tournaments I played in like set 5 and set 6, I was like, a lot of times I was like 9th place, like 9th or 10th or something like that, where like I'm like right off the final lobby, and like whenever you're at that spot, you're thinking, okay, maybe I like grief myself in like game 2 or something, or like you make like a dumb positioning thing because you think they're gonna swap but they don't swap, and things like that. But I think part of it is just like you just have to sort of process that and move on with it, because it's like, if you're accurately identifying the mistakes you're making, you kind of have to separate out that from like the sort of emotions of like not succeeding in a tournament, right? Because you don't want them to be like sort of mixed together.
Yeah, it comes with the territory. I think the more TFT tournaments you play, the more you realize that happens to everybody. Like that's even happening to the person that narrowly beat you on tiebreakers. They know that they can squeeze out more placements and play cleaner and better. TFTs, it's getting more and more optimized, but we are far from playing optimal or right now. Like, and so I think that's a really interesting observation that you're making. If you're playing in tournaments, just be prepared to have regrets. Basically.
That's actually one of the nice things about Setsuko putting up this performance is like I think I gave up like 7-8 placements, which is so many. But like I think even if I get all those placements back, I'm not beating Setsuko. So like I'm still beating myself up, but it's not as bad as like, oh, I could have gone first if I like didn't, make all these like easy mistakes. It's like Jesus, like what is Setsuko on?
I like that. And go ahead, Gangly.
Well, I was just gonna say I feel like, and I'm curious, Dan, to hear how you feel about this. I feel like in more recent sets, player agency in tournament has actually been considered more of a factor than it used to be. I feel like back in like set 4, set 5, a lot of players who did not perform in tournament could very easily chalk it up to like, oh no, it's just variance. Like, tournament doesn't matter, it's a joke, blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, though, I feel like people are way more critical on their own play in tournament, which is, obviously that's like a great thing for the scene because it makes our wins more validated. And like it also just naturally makes the scene stronger at large. I don't know. Do you feel that trend as well?
Yeah, I do. I think I boil it down to I think we're just better at TFT now. I think we used to blame luck a lot more because we didn't understand things nearly as much as we did, and therefore we can identify it, right? Kind of similar to like back in the old days of humanity, we didn't know how to explain things because we didn't have like science really figured out, so we just called it magic. And so it feels like in some ways that's what happens with TFT. Like in the very beginning of TFT, a lot of things that we couldn't really understand in terms of like what was going on, we kind of just blame luck, and that's not really happening nearly as much. And I love that Filup brought up Setsuko because I got a chance to talk to Setsuko. And it's always so funny, by the way, because talking to Setsuko is memes nonstop. This guy is just constantly like memeing left and right about, isn't this trash or whatever. He's just doing his like usual like Setsukoisms. And then when it comes to talking about a tournament, he's so dead serious. This is what he had to say. He said, quote, "I think I did well because I was best at identifying the correct line to play on stage 2. So many people prematurely commit to Ionia Vanquishers without scouting enough and are doomed to the level 7 lottery. I also think it was the first tournament where I executed at my peak level. Every tournament, there's many games right after where I realized a mistake that cost me like 2 placements, but not this one, bar like 1 or 2 games, maybe." Damn. If you're talking about Setsuko at his peak, what was it, 1.96 average? Pretty insane. We have a quote from Robovan, who also got 8th in that lobby. Top 8, rather. 8th sounds bad in the context of TFT. He got top 8. He said, "I think Noxus Cup went really well for me, but I could have played a lot better, and I missed out on regionals, which made me sad. And that all just motivates me to do better next set." Robovan made a really good run in the LCQ last set in set 8 and had a really strong performance, not joining us for regionals. Last but certainly not least, I managed to wrangle a comment out of Milk, who got 2nd in the tournament. He said, quote, "Bro, I didn't care about this tournament at all. Weird champ." That's all he had to say to me. And there you have it. All of our testimonies from the day. Let's go ahead and do the second part of the last big portion of our show, which is evaluating our final rankings and how we did, right? As much as we like to look ahead and predict and think about how smart we are analyzing, we hold ourselves accountable, gangly, for the power rankings that we submit. And boy, did we suck. Oh man, we had replay, Kurum, Ramblin, Soju, Wage, Robin, T-Lights, Kiyun. That is 8 people on this top 15. Did not make the top 16. That's our criteria. We give ourselves, being able to make the penultimate lobby. It feels like we kind of accurately hit the power rankings. But alas, I think for some of these names, it's a narrow miss. Like replay missed out on tiebreakers for 17th. Kurum was like 1 point off, so it could have easily gone the other way. Very, very close things, all considered. But you know what the silver lining is? The best ballot goes to me. It's the first time I've won best ballot, actually, since we started tracking this, because I actually was tied with Clear and Goobums, but compared to Clear, I picked Setsuko to win it, and that's what happened. And he picked Dish Soap. And then versus Goobums, I had more people concentrating in the top 10. Goobums got the most right, but he put them all like 12 to 15. So if you go based off of that standings, I ended up scoring the highest. So shout out to myself. But at this point, you guys recognize that this podcast, as much as it's about talking about TFT, it's about also talking about my predictions, I guess.
I just wanted to say, like, looking at the list of people missing, I don't think it feels that obviously the ones like replay Kurum, they don't hurt that bad, right? Because it's so close to top 16. But man, we missed hard on a lot of these names that I don't know exactly how it lines up with like what the worst all time overall ballot is.
Oh, that was Iniko's ballot. Iniko one time went really haywire. He went like, he predicted like the usual 5 or 6, and then like 7 through 15, he just like missed. But he really went for it. He like predicted a bunch of like unknown people at the time, or like relatively less popular people. But I mean, that's what Iniko likes to do with his ballot. He likes to he put me on his ballot. Like, come on now. Come on now.
He's got the vision sometimes though. He's got some good picks.
All right, so we talked about our top 15. I did enough yapping. We always ask our guests for the reviewed show to submit their own top 15, and we have regionals coming up. So maybe as a little bit of a brief teaser, we're asking these guys to power rank ahead of time for regionals. Who wants to go first, Filup or Xnieamo? You both submitted.
I can go.
All right, Xnieamo, there you go. Don't both jump in at once here. Okay, so Xnieamo, we're gonna start with your top 7. So you put Setsuko 1, Prestivan at number 2, already getting spicy. Dish Soap at 3, Milk at 4, Wajan at 5, Kurum at 6, Goobums at 7. Then 8 is Robin, 9 is DQA, 10 is Deepay, 11 is Casper, 13 T-Lights, 14th Soju, and 15th Darth Noob. Now, you submitted this a few hours ago. And the first question we always ask to kick things off is, where do you perceive the first gap to be in terms of like these players are cut above the rest?
I think it's probably around like maybe like 5 or 6, because that's when I started having difficulty with the list. I think my like top 5 was pretty clear cut, and then afterwards I had to start thinking, so I would put it there.
Ah, okay. Oh, replay is 12. For some reason, I just don't have it. Whoopsie daisies. Let me fix that real quick. Give me a second. Sorry about that. Dude, I was about to... Dude, okay, so the funny thing about replay is that he always feels like he has like a chip on his shoulder, and I guess omitting him from the list that he even made only exacerbates that, so sorry about that. Okay, interesting. So what about Prestivan you feel like is putting him top 2? That's a really hot take, man, for a lot of people.
Oh, I mean, he's been doing pretty well on ladder, right? Because like he's always like really high up. And the other thing is like half the time, like when I was thinking about this, a lot of it is also just based off how annoying people are when they're in my games. Like annoying.
Wait, say more.
Like annoying in terms of to like play against, not as in like you're there yapping or something like that.
Oh, okay. I thought you're like, man, these guys are like my least favorite streamers, and I'm like, you know what? Outside of Wajan, I'm like, I can see it at the top 5. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like when Prestivan's in my games, he always is picking like the right lines and like not briefing himself too hard. So it's also like basically, if I remember having like hard games against people, that's sort of also a plus. It's very much like a feel thing, but
Okay. And then where do you perceive one more gap to be? You said after like the 5 or 6. Do you feel like 7-15 is pretty close, or do you feel like there's also like a band of players that are threatening and like are higher up than some of the others?
So like I would probably put like Kurum, Goobums, and Robin in their own group, and then the rest as the
9 to
third
15
group if I had to. But it's like less clear cut than like top 5, I would think.
Interesting. You know what? Honestly, props they even put Soju on this list. I feel like at this point, it is almost like trendy to leave him off top 15s. But hey, I like that you did. Also, you put DQA really high, even though this guy doesn't even play TFT anymore. I mean, he does, but like, is he really grinding TFT? Not really.
Oh, I don't know, but I feel like DK can always pop off. So
He can. He always can, especially come regionals time, right? He's done it twice. Okay. Any other player that you think that you want to call out? Like Gangly, what do you think? Is there any other like number that you're like, oh, why do you have this player at this number?
Well, I actually wanted to know where Xnieamo sees himself on
Ooh, I like
his list, because obviously you left yourself off the top 15.
oh, I mean, realistically, I think if you put me anywhere within like the sort of, so I definitely wouldn't put myself in like the top 8, I think, but anywhere like in the rest of the group, I probably wouldn't argue against that. Like
Okay.
just overall, I don't think there's that big of a difference between any player past like the top group. So
Okay. So he feels like he can compete, and he would put himself anywhere from what, like 9 to 20, I guess, is kind of where it is. Depending on his form, I suppose, or meta read. Okay. So Filup also put out a list. Let's go ahead and reveal that now. So Philup's top spot is similar. He starts off with Setsuko at number 1. Then he put Milk at 2, Prestivant at 3, and Dissoap at 4. Dissoap really not getting that second place or even like contending with Setsuko in these lists. Kurum at 5, Weijin at 6, and Goobums at 7. So a very similar top 7, just rearranged. Then at 8, we got T-Lides, 9 Robin, 10 Casper, 11 Replay, 12 Soju, 13 Darth Noob. And here's where it gets kind of spicy. 14, Filup puts Vanilla. 15, he puts Jack. All right, so Filup, before we get to the last couple of spots, which are I think the most interesting, but Dissoap at number 4, man, might be the lowest we think we've ever seen someone rank Dissoap.
I think it's not really that I think dish soap isn't good. I think Precedent is just really good. It's probably a little bit of like voter fatigue on my end with dish soap too.
Oh,
But yeah, I think Peagot is a beast. I think Milk is a beast. I think Setsuko is a beast. Dish soap is obviously also really good, but like I don't know. I just thought I'd give the nod to Peagot.
can you describe that voter fatigue a little bit? You're saying like he's not performing relative to expectations in terms of where people put him on the 1-2 list?
Yeah, I think pretty much. I think I feel like dish soap never really has the best meta read going into tournaments. And like especially right now, I think his strengths are like I mean like obviously he's a really good player. He's really good at playing around this like forecast, flex, very, very pure TFT, which I think is not a strength of the current set. Um so I think like if the game is like better designed, I would be more inclined to put dish soap higher, but like he's not willing to like be degen enough.
All right. Interesting. Okay. Then Kurum, Weijin, Goobums. Do you agree with it, Xnieamo, like kind of a gap after this like top 7, top 8?
Yeah, I actually think that I would put anybody from 2 through 7 at number 2, depending on like their form at the time.
Oh, wow.
I actually originally started this list with Goobums at number 2. I think that guy's a beast, but then I looked at his LP and went down a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's not looking too hot. He's grinding really hard right
but-
now as we speak too for DSG.
Yeah, I mean, best of luck to him. But like, yeah, I think anyone from 2 through 7 could be like in the number 2 spot if they just have like a good meta read, like they're in good form.
Okay. It seems like T-Lides is like getting more and more recognition here. You have him over people like Robin, who are proven commodities, tournament winners, and one of the most successful NA players. What is it about someone like T-Lides that has him as high as 8?
Once again, I agree with Xnieamo and just that I think that I mean honestly that gap between all of these players is really like small. It's kind of hard to rank them. Everybody's at a pretty high level. I didn't realize Robin wasn't trying for a Noxus Cup. If he had told me that beforehand, maybe like it changes a little bit. But I think D-Lights has been a like consistent beast. You know, he hasn't even been playing competitive for very long, but I feel like he's very good, constantly improving.
Okay.
I thought he was in really good form coming into Noxus Cup. Honestly, I'm just surprised he got day 3, but I'd expect him to do really well at regionals.
Yeah, I heard through the grapevine, not directly from him, but that some of the spots were like actually just unplayable. Like, you know, with reroll, sometimes you just miss and you just nothing about it. You play Cho from amazing spot, you just go 7th. That's what happens. I think that's what happened to him. So yeah, probably just more of a fluke of an event. I agree. I think he's been putting a lot of consistent performances on. I think he, out of that group, he's been one of the most impressive people, I think. Okay, let's get to it, man. Vanilla and Jack. These are two players who have had tournament results, but not respect. Almost every person that I've asked behind the scenes comment about it. A lot of people say when they look at the results and they're impressed, but then they watch the VODs and they're not impressed. Specifically with these, I know these are two names that have come up. They're like, yeah, these are people who are getting results, but like, I'm looking at them and they're not passing my eye test. So when you put them at 14 and 15, I want to hear your justification behind that. So I love to hear why those people are just haters and why they're wrong.
I think the results speak for themselves, you know. I mean, I think I think especially Jack. I mean, I study with Jack. I told him I was gonna put him at 15 to make him mad. I think I originally actually had him like a little bit higher here. But I think that Jack is really good if he's not tilted. I think he just like tilts a lot and then like plays like questionable lines and then like tilts himself more. And then Vanilla, yeah, I mean like I feel like Vanilla isn't the greatest ladder player, so he gets some like flack for that or like loses some respect for that. But like I mean he's just been a beast in tournaments all set. I think like I mean again the middle of like the pack here is also competitive that I think like, you know, again like a good meta read or like even like just like, you know, having a good night's sleep honestly probably like moves you up like 5 10 placements. So for me it's just like I feel like Vanilla's been a beast in tournaments and
Okay.
I value that upside.
What is Jack's greatest strength as a player, in your opinion?
I think Jack is like pretty well-rounded, like strong fundamentals, has this very strong sense of like good intuition around like what's like quote unquote like proper TFT. I think that's also what you know sort of like tilts him sometimes is because like unfortunately sometimes we have these patches where strong TFT or like strong fundamentals are not always rewarded. But I think like yeah, I mean, I think he's just like a very strong fundamental player.
Okay. And then Vanilla, what's his greatest strength?
That guy's a beast at high rolling.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say it, man. I was like, as soon as a smile came over your face, I'm like, he's gonna say high rolling augments. I just know.
No, I mean, like, I haven't done super deep analysis of Vanilla's play. So like, I can't really speak to it. I don't really study like one-on-one with Vanilla.
Okay.
But like, again, like, I think the results speak for themselves, and like, you know, yeah, I mean, he just made top 16 Noxus Cup too. So like, I don't like.
Yeah. After he did well at mid set, and he also did well in set 9's other cups. Like, eventually, if he just keeps putting on good tournament performances, I think people will start recognizing it. But I think some people need to see those ladder results first and like more impressive specific eye test, which is, again, it's a really abstract thing. It's arbitrary, right? So, I was talking about it on the last episode, but Sox's eye test is different from Goobump's eye test, which is different from Milk's eye test, which is different from me and Bryce's eye test. So.
Okay, it's funny because I think to me actually a player, and I'm not saying this about like again, I haven't watched enough Vanilla's like VODs for him to not pass the eye test for me, but I think for me when a player doesn't pass the eye test when they like perform really well, that's actually like a green flag for me. I'm like, okay, like this player like it actually like goes against everything I know, but they perform super well. So like I feel weird calling specific people out because I'm basically saying like I thought they were bad when I watched them, but they did well. Like yeah, I think those are the players I'm like most incentivized to like watch and sort of figure out like okay, like how are they playing or how are they getting these like great placements if I think they're just like, you know, playing these spots badly.
I love this take because I think that this has been a conversation for a while when it comes to ballots too, right? Where like there are some people who make ballots that are a bit more like reactionary based on results, right? And then there are a lot of people who are staunchly in favor of only ranking players that they have studied, right? That they've seen all their decisions and that they agree with. the take I've kind of taken on this though is that like if you are so fixated on eye test, you have to be biased based on how you understand the game. And so when someone does disagree with you and like Filup is saying finds results still, to me, I think like Filup has a really good point. Like there probably is something about it that you just don't understand. Maybe soulless pre-leveling when he doesn't have worked in anyway.
No,
fine.
Gangly, no soulless propaganda.
But I do think like there's something to be said there that like yeah, if we're going to say the player agency is a thing in TFT, then that means that like at some level, if someone keeps finding success, even if you don't agree with it, you have to admit like maybe there is something there that I just don't get.
Oh, there's definitely something I don't get, but well, no, I actually agree. I think that I like I think Vanilla is really optimistic player. When I watch him, I'm just like, you just like believe, man. And that's kind of it's more similar to Solus. I know we like to meme him, but Vanilla and Solus are actually quite similar in that respect. So we'll see whether or not he's able to carry that into regionals. Because I love a good underdog story. I mean, I'm an underdog myself when I enter tournaments. I mean, I think Gangly and I love underdog stories. We love storytelling. That's like the whole point of it. At one point, some of these players were underdogs, right? You guys remember when Goobums was first breaking on the scene? You heard me interview him. He was talking about like his first foray of getting known was because he was getting flamed by Kiyun and Soju for being like an annoying, like one trick player that they had to go up against on the ladder. Disso was just like this random challenger player that barely made top 15 in set 6 because he's like an Arcanist AP one trick. Now look at him now. So somewhere down the road, maybe we reflect upon it and we just laugh at how silly we used to think about players. And on that note, let's go to our final segment of the show, which is Agree, where we go through some takes, whether hot or cold or room temperature, and we ask if the panel agrees. All right, so here's the first one. This one's very common, being perpetrated across many Discord servers, Reddit, Twitter, etc. Twisted Fate being an S tier legend means that the patch is poorly balanced. This is in response to I mean, I've seen this so many times. I've heard it so many times. It was like Twisted Fate, just by definition, cannot be one of the best legends in the game. Because if so, that means game is not good. Do we agree? Xnieamo, you start.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So at least from my perspective, when I so like going into Noxus, I was actually at Poro, and then I switched to Twisted Fate for day 4. And like the mentality was that my worst case, I just forced the Nyla Bilgewater Bruiser comp. And so like if there's a bailout comp that you can just force and have used a Twisted Fate for BIS everything, like I think that's, you know, a symptom of poor balancing.
Okay. Filup.
I'd agree, but I wouldn't really say it's about the patch. I think it's a little bit more about like the unit and like the set design. Like again, a big reason I'm playing TF is because like I just hated those spots when like you're like sword, bow, glove opener, and like, you know, there's like 3 people in lobby with like an Ionia start. You're like you have like a Cho'Gath 2 or something, you know, and it's just like, oh well, like there's legit no play here other than to slam like LW and like opt into the Ionia contest or like play some like terrible Graves line. I mean, you're not playing Aphelios. There's no other 4 costly carry in the game, so I think like I mean, I don't really think Challengers is super high EV from that spot. So like I think it's just about the current state of like especially like 4 cost carries in the game, all like we highlighted earlier, having really specific BIS and having that BIS not really be flexible between them.
Okay. So it's like more of a necessity, and it's not necessarily a direct correlation there. I see. Gangly.
Yeah, I don't have too much additional to add. I also pretty much hard agree with this. I think a part of it too, like bouncing off of what Filup said earlier, like committing really hard on stage 2 is so strong as well that I feel like that plays a part in you know, the strength of TF, which just it feels like an unhealthy thing for the game overall.
Yeah, I think so. I do think that this doesn't mean that Twisted Fate isn't skill expressive in some ways. I don't think that this means Twisted Fate can't be like a part of the ecosystem and contribute towards a healthy metagame. But I will say that when Twisted Fate is S tier, and there's 8 people picking Twisted Fate, I'm not playing standard TFT. I'm playing a game mode. Hyper roll, when you queue it up, removes the need for economy management. And that alone makes it so that the game is just different. Like when you don't have to worry about your economic thresholds of making gold interest and managing your goal, and you're just incentivized to roll or like go for this big power swing turn, it just changes the game. In the same way, Twisted Fate just makes it so it's like hyper rollable for items. Like your items don't really matter anymore. And it's like you just have to basically find a way to hard force it, and you're playing a specific game mode in TFT. I don't mind it for the occasional experience. I think Pandora's items is a fun augment. And I think legends are a potentially fun mechanic. I think this legend in particular is deeply problematic for TFT. And I really hope if legends do end up somehow coming back to TFT in a future set, that something like this is never repeated, because I don't find it enjoyable. I have so many conversations where I was just like, I hate that I locked in Twisted Fate for Noxus Cup final weekend. This is like one of my least favorite ways to play the game. But I'm doing it because I think it's good and I want to do well. And also I think it's a unique perspective on the meta. At the time, I thought it was like a cool meta read, and this was, a day or two before. That's where I derived enjoyment of it, but I didn't like playing it. Okay, Second Degree. This one was kind of a chatting moment, but I wanted to hear if there was any merit to it whatsoever, which is Sasuke and Kurum X winning all the cup is also just an extreme side of variance, but the other way, right? Tournaments are still heavily driven by luck. And I saw this comment and I was like, do people actually believe this? Maybe. Let's go ahead and start things off. Filup, agree?
Yeah, it's all luck. Xnieamo and I should be there. Those guys are for once. The obvious answer is just like, Setsuko's average is just too insane, you can't argue that anymore.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think is the percent? Like, let's just say you had to assign some arbitrary like ratio of like it's 50% luck, 50% skill, something like that. Like, where would your distribution be, Filup?
For like winning tournaments, I think there's still luck generally in like placing like top one in tournaments, right? I think, I would say like 80% of the time you can perform consistently in these kinds of tournaments. And by like consistently, I mean like, make like day 3, day 4. But like obviously like I think winning tournaments takes some luck because everybody is at a really high level, right? And when everybody is at the similarly high level, your edges obviously become like smaller. Yeah.
Okay. You didn't answer my question, but I guess you said 80%, 80-20.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's like I think it's I think it's sort of a difficult question to answer just based on like what do you quantify as like doing well in a tournament, and like how do you assign like luck versus skill to any given distribution?
Okay. Sound like you have the makings of a caster, man. You're unwilling to pick a side. Great. Xnieamo, agreed?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree in the sense that winning tournaments is it's not like all luck, but like I think luck has to be on your side to win. But at the same time, it's like generally I think placing well in tournaments is probably mostly skill. Like I don't know, if I had to do a percentage, it'd be like 75-25.
Okay.
Skill to luck for placing well, but like I think it's because I think to win you either have to like high roll your ass off, or you have to be offered positions in game that you're comfortable with, right? Like maybe you're just continuously offered lines that you're comfortable with playing. And you don't even high roll, you just medium roll, but then you're very good at those lines, and then you do well. Because I mean, so like this tournament was obviously an exception because like Setsuko had like a almost like a whole like a tremendous lead over everyone else, but like for a lot of these like tournaments, like when the difference is like 3, 4, 5 points, then yeah, I think that's like it's a luck thing. But yeah, so I mean I agree with the first part, but less so with the second part, I guess.
Fair enough. 75-25 for that kind of sounds right to me, because it's like 8 out of 12 games feels like it's very much within your control, and like every odd game or so you're just like, this game's like really hard, or I'm just like low rolling, or I'm not high rolling, right? I'm like mid rolling, something like that. Gangly, what do you think?
Okay, so I want to preface saying I think Setsuko is high rolling set 9. I say that
Okay.
I do, like, as a whole, I honestly do. I say that because he has record-breaking numbers in TFT. Nobody else, the best average placement across the set we've ever had was set 5, where Robin averaged about 3.35 over the set. Insane number. Everyone attributes Robin to high rolling, regional finals and mid-set finale. And Setsuko's destroying that number. And I want to make sure I'm trying to be a little more concise because there's a lot of numbers here, but ranks 5 through 15 in the data are all about 0.2 placements away. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Setsuko has a roughly 0.7 placement lead over the next best placement with players with over 40 games, which is Kuramex. So just to get an understanding of the gap, he has essentially 4 times the gap over second than 5th does over 15th. So he is, it's far and away,
Wow.
That's
yeah.
So yes, I think Setsuko probably is high rolling. The thing is, I don't know that anybody else in North America is capable of high rolling and getting this much success out of their high roll than Setsuko is. And just like another number to add to it is if you combine set 8 and set 9, Setsuko is first in average placement with probably, and I don't have the hard number, but probably a half placement over the next best player. Like his numbers with over 100 games, probably 120 game sample size in the last 10 months is far and away above anyone else in North America. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, he probably is high rolling to find this success, but I don't think it's just pure chance that the second best ladder player, arguably best at certain points in time, is who has such a gap over everybody else in North America, and it's purely because he's getting luckier than everybody else in the field, because there's a lot of players in North America who are high rolling in these tournaments, but he's the only one that's actually engaging with it and getting these results. So there's definitely luck involved, but I think that Duco's also just infinitely better than a lot of these players.
I like that. It's a disagree with me from the sentiment of it. I feel like it's an oversimplification of what's happening. Setsuko is high rolling. Yes, Kurum is high rolling. You put other players in those seats. Are they putting out similar numbers? Probably not. I follow another sport, Formula One. Everyone says that the person who wins the championship is just in the fastest car. It's not really about the driver, right? You just happen to drive a good car, and then you compare drivers side by side. Sometimes they're driving the same car, but they're not having the same results. And I feel like that's the same way. Put other people in those seats, they're probably averaging worse than what Setsuko's doing. I didn't even realize he was multiple standard deviations better than everybody else across a large sample size. That's pretty impressive. The fact that he's half a placement average gapping over everybody else is mind-boggling. I don't even think people really can fathom how hard that is to do right now in TFT. So this statement was disrespectful. Chat also disagrees, 83%. I mean, my take whenever people ask me that is I say that TFT is 100% skill, but it's also 100% luck, and it's all about whether or not you're able to roll the punches, because the game does deliver to you in all different kinds of ways, and you have to be prepared for it. Last but certainly not least, this was a spark from interviews that I did after the show, mainly from Milk. I said that the current format of the NA competitive circuit has too many meaningless tournaments. No one cares about these cups. So let's start with Gangly, a person who I know who cares about these cups. So I know that you probably will disagree, or at least I want to hear your thoughts on this, Gangly.
Yeah. Okay. I think a lot of people care about these cups. The draw of TFT, in the same way that there is a draw to poker or to Settlers of Catan, is that it's a strategic game of variance, right? Which makes it naturally more accessible. And there is this certain element of like any given Sunday that exists in TFT more so than any other game. But the fact that there's so much player agency in the game means that, like, yeah, there is this any given Sunday, goal for some people. But at the same time, everybody knows that, like, you're not going to get there unless you're actually the best. The fact to me is that, like, TFT has this opportunity to engage on these platinum and diamond players that exist in this space that want to one day reach that like path to pro. And to me, like that is what these cups represent.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I get what Milk is saying. Like, yeah, you're not winning very much money. There's no safety net of competing in these tournaments. It's stressful, and sometimes it makes you look bad for no reason, and you don't really get all that much out of it. But to me, it's like, if we want this game to grow, if we believe that this is an ecosystem that's worth investing in, then like it doesn't start with the top 0.1%, right? Like, no offense to Milk, but like I think Milk. Hold on, let me be careful.
You don't have to, man. It's our podcast. You can say whatever you want.
I think that there are a lot of really important players in the scene, and most of them are not competing, they're watching. That's the point I'm trying to make. Like, these cups are really important for fostering the ecosystem of the game. And to say that they're not important is, I think, a really, really bad take. At the same time, though, I want to be respectful because, like, I get what Milk is trying to say. Like, it really probably does not feel worth it to most of the players that are competing there because they know they're not going to get anything meaningful out of it. And so I don't think that we're at our final form of what TFT looks like. And I think that, like, if there's a world where 64 TFT players can sustain themselves by just playing professionally and not relying on Twitch streaming, then, like, suddenly I think what Milk is saying is super validating because it's like, well, no, we're not just like a bunch of random people playing a cup that's going to pay us out $15 at the end of the day. We're professional players playing in this, league or whatever it is, and we know that we're sustaining ourselves. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because I feel like I could ramble on, but overall, I disagree with what Milk is saying, and I think that these cups are a really important step for engaging in the lower elo but interested in competitive T sphere.
Okay, Xnieamo, you're up next.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with it because one of the like IRL, I guess, sports I follow is tennis. That's a single player sport. Like TFT is a single player esport, and while the format isn't identical, it's very similar in the sense that there's an overall circuit ranking system, and the way that you're ranked is your performances in tournaments, and there are smaller, professional tennis tournaments, and there are the big Grand Slams throughout the year, and usually the people who get into the big four tournaments are the ones with the highest ranking on the whatever the ranking thing is called, and then there's some free slots, wildcard slots that are also up for grabs for lower ranked players. So it's like, I think it's very similar to like a real sport analog. And so I think it's a perfectly fine system. I do agree with the sentiment that it's not very rewarding because obviously like the prize money isn't very much, and you're like, most people aren't even getting any prize money, so you're just spending like a week of a lot of hard work prepping and then a whole weekend playing TFT with very high stress, and then walking away. It feels like you're walking away with very little, but I think that's separate from like the system design being flawed. So yeah.
And then Filup.
Oh, for me, I mean, like, I kind of get why Milk is saying it, right? Because I like Milk has been like, he's one of the GOATs. He's been a top player for almost the entirety of the time TFT has been out. Like, these tournaments mean nothing to him, but like I don't think that like really is the case for most of the scene, right? I think everybody's still trying to prove themselves. They like competition. There's like, I mean, the alternative is just like playing ladder, which I also wouldn't think Milk really respects, right? Because like you have like these like masters like one tricks just like hard contesting your comps. I don't think it's like a great competitive environment. So like I think like you would take tournament over that any day, right? So like, I mean, yeah, I like tournaments.
Okay. Chat overwhelmingly disagrees 91%. I mean, I disagree as well. For one thing, if you were to take it literally, because obviously he's not saying it literally, but to say no one cares is asinine. Like, a lot of people care, both from the participants and the viewers. That's one. But the spirit of what he's trying to say, so that I fundamentally disagree with like the way it's being framed. But in terms of what he's saying is like, is it not worth the time investment for him as a top player? I also think that is just a really, I think it's like the people who say like regular season does not matter and it's all about ring culture, right? The whole idea is like you're nothing unless you win rings. And I think what Milk doesn't understand, people like him. I think he's speaking out on behalf of other people too. I know other people have said this, like Kiyuna says stuff like this, Soju says stuff like this, right? And a bunch of other people who are like popular say these are like meaningless cups. I think that what they are failing to realize is that by really leaning into this mentality, they're setting themselves up to create a situation where TFT is going to be too much about things like ring culture, and like all that matters is regionals and that world championship, when there's so much bigger. Kind of what Gangly's saying, we're trying to foster a competitive ecosystem that's trying to rival things like Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and other really big communities. And what Milk wants it to be is League of Legends World Championship. What he wants it to be is like Dota's International. What he wants it to be is like CSGO Majors. And I think like that's a complete mismatch of expectations versus reality. I think in his mind, there's like, he wants to have it all. He wants to play online cups where he doesn't have to travel. He wants to not use web and cam while competing. Just do that. He doesn't want to travel. He doesn't want to use web and mic cam. He wants high stakes. He wants infrequent cups, and he wants a lot of money. Oh, and he also wants like to be able to make a career off of it and not have to actually work and be a professional. You can't make all these things work. It's hard to even get 3 of them, let alone like these 6 or 7 ridiculous claims that you're asking for. And so I think that it's not just a bad take, it's a terrible take. It's like a take that like if we were to follow it, TFT would die in a year or less. And because it's the same people, he's like, I want a 16-player regionals where it's only the elite of the elite. And it's like, well, guess what? You just shrink the player base. That's what you just did. And you just have the same, you had the same people beating each other over and over, and you know, like, and this ecosystem dwindles. Actually, you don't actually grow it. And so if you believe this is a meaningless tournament, I personally say don't play. If you don't, it is not worth your time. But to try and like campaign and make a shift around the 0.0001%, and it's because that's where it is. It's not even the 1%, right? It's like it's the elite of the elite of the elite that wants it to tail through him. I can't agree with that. And here's the kicker. There's even top players that disagree with him. Dish Soap says he thinks it's fine, and it's actually fine. Replay says he likes playing in these cups. So he's even isolated amongst his peers, which I think is fascinating. I'm sorry to put Milk on the actual on actual blast, but he's also one of my closest friends in the scene, and I love him to bits. And I think that I can speak to it. But man, this was a bad take.
I just want to say one last thing on this, and I'll keep it brief. But like the thing that's so important about these cups is that this is the only opportunity for so many people in this space to break out. And I think there's like a very common through line of like the people who don't really love the cups are the people who are already established and have made it, right? They've been here from the beginning.
Yes.
And so they quite frankly don't need to do much else in order to be comfortable. Like all of these cups are for them are inconveniences and things that like I think these are the players that actually stand more to lose by going to a cup and going 60th out of 64th. Like, I get that. But it's important for like the growth of our scene. It's important for story building, and it's important for like getting engaged viewers who say like, hey, I want to do that one day, or like, hey, I want to make a local LAN, or I want to watch this with my buddies. Like, we stand to gain so much by these cups, and I think we haven't even scratched the surface of the things that can come out of events like this.
Well said, Gangly. Well said. I think most of us are kind of aligned on this. I look forward to the next set of cups. I also look forward to a revamped system that's improved. I'm not saying the system is perfect. It's not. There could be improvements across the board, and I hope that they are, but changes are coming. We'll maybe all of this is just fruitless, right? Maybe Riot already has a system that's designed that's actually really good and better than we have for set 10 moving forward. We'll just have to find out. The final thing is to recap a couple of small things. The first is fantasy draft. And in an absolute stunning turn of events, Emily Wang ends up beating Box narrowly by 3 points thanks to Tetsuko and Milk's incredible day 4 charge. Box had all 5 of his players advance, and we thought he won by a landslide. But as it turns out, Tetsuko racking up insane amount of points basically is worth 2 players. Just put it out there, 95 points. Compared to some other people who get, 25 to 28 for day 1 and 50 points competing across 2 days. Tetsuko nearly doubled that. And so it's almost as if Emily drafted 2 players in 1. That's how insane of a performance that Suko had. Incredible clutch. One of the biggest come from behind victories we've ever seen in fantasy. And who better else than the Wang that earned that title of the comeback champion in fantasy. Speaking of comebacks, we got LCQ. This is the last opportunity for these 16 players to make it. This weekend, I'll be co-streaming. I have Raditz, and I believe Ramblin might be joining, but we'll see. Assuming if he doesn't compete, he'll be joining, but I think he's going to compete. But either way, we're going to be covering it. LCQ, 2 days, 2 spots. Let's see who gets it. It's going to be a good time. Also, shout out to people who were able to grind for that LCQ spot. It was very cool to see everyone kind of clutch on the last day. It's, again, ladder, like people say ladders like whatever, like meaningless, but like, you know, it's not exciting, but these snapshots are very exciting. Every single top 4 and bot 4, especially coming into the last couple of hours, is very, very fun. I have a good time with it. And there you go. That brings us to the end of the episode. We're at the finish line, fellas. Let's get some final words and wrap up this bad boy. So, Xnieamo, thanks for joining us. Thanks for putting on your webcam. I know it's like this is your introduction to the scene, so it was a pleasure to have you.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun to be here. So, looking forward to future episodes.
All right, sounds good. Filup, any final words?
Yeah, I mean, also, like, it was a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you for having me. And, yeah, hopefully we'll see you again after we win the regionals. And I want to. Xnieamo, yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, if you win regionals, we got to talk to you again, especially if you're going to the World Championships. So we'll put it out there. If you guys do really well, it won't be long before we get you back. Gangly, any final words?
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to Clear, who made LCQ, and all I could think about when he was on that bubble was that we made him forfeit a solo queue game that he tried to play in between games at CC4.
Oh,
and
what?
Then, and his tournament game couldn't even start because we had server issues. So shout out to Clear for still making the LCQ. I would have felt horrible if he did not qualify, and it was like a 40 LP difference.
That's wild.
So you know what? Yeah, he's a go to TFT. Thanks for having me on, Dan. Very, very happy to fill in for Bryce.
Oh man, I had no idea. Well, Clear, congratulations on making it then. I didn't even realize that things had gotten really close from that. But yeah, that all sets the stage for this weekend's LCQ going into regionals. We're not going to do any episode for the podcast of Don't Talk If You Don't Know around LCQ. We're going to roll straight into regionals. So the very next episode that we're going to be doing will be on October 26th with myself, Bryce Esports Law Blum, Michael K3 Soju Jang, and one of his hooligan buddies that eventually will agree. We asked Tetsuko, he said no. We asked Milk, he said no. We'll get somebody. Maybe Precedent will rejoin the show again. That'll be really fun. We haven't had Soju on in like a year, by the way. So it'll be cool to have Soju back on the podcast, previewing regionals, and once again, watching him go dead last in fantasy, as is tradition. If you missed any part of this episode, you can check out our content over at 2 places, youtube.com/@DTIYDK. Or if you want the audio-only version, check out Spotify. Spotify has our playlist. You can also check out the Anchor feed, which is anchor.fm/DTIYDK. From Frodan, Gangly, Filup, and Xnieamo, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Noxus Cup Reviewed, and we'll see you guys next time for more TFT action.